2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 19th KQM podcast. We really should season these with how long our breaks are, but that's gonna be alright. To preface, Kaching Mains is a huge group of people that work to produce high-quality content for the Genshin community. We're actually partnered with tons of your favorite Discord servers and content creators. I'm Artesians, your host. I'm the head of Theorycrafting at Genshin Mains, and manage a ton of projects that collect all the knowledge in Genshin for the Western community. I'm joined by our co-hosts, so let's really quick introduce them to Ayzel. Hey.
Hello. I'm a washed-up theory crafter. I don't really do too much calculation stuff nowadays, but back when I was more active, I did a lot of calculations on your favorite units. I'm also currently the author/co-author for the Kazuha and the Yoimiya guides and the Dendro guides on KQM, and you might have seen me from my shit posting on Twitter.
Yep, you're getting a lot of trouble for those. And I'm joined by our other co-host, Tenten. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, how about you introduce yourself too, Tenten?
I'm
He
Tenten.
doesn't feel like it.
Oh, okay,
Exactly.
my bad.
Nowadays, I'm just a fucking clickbait streamer.
Oh.
True.
Beige. Also getting in trouble over here. Alright, and finally, our last but definitely not the least, our world famous, renowned theory crafter, the fabulous Zajef77. Hello.
True. Hi, I'm Zajef, and I am currently molding on a AR28 account because I keep forgetting to do my dailies, and I'm supposed to do them on stream, but oh well, it's fine.
Maybe start on it next time. Alright.
But it's so boring. Like
fair
I'm
enough.
gonna have to do Lantern Rite for the third time.
That's based.
Bro, Beto's fucking little ships can no, stop it. Getting 5,000 points once was already more than enough.
Don't worry, I'll have to be doing that later. I don't know if I want to stream it. Maybe I'll swear in private. But it's been a really long while since our last podcast, as we took a super extended break, and we're so sorry about that. We had Thanksgiving, and then we had the holiday season in December, and we didn't want to schedule anything then. And then turns out Tenten scheduled a whole month-long visit to Japan, and then Zajef got sick. So 2 of our co-hosts were just gone, so I didn't want to run anything without them. But we've got a lot of TC to cover, so we'll catch up really fast today with our hosts and our... Oh wait, I didn't introduce our guest. I'm so sorry. Our guest today is
Hello.
KB.
Hello, I'm KB. I'm one of the TC leads over at Wangsheng Funeral Parlor. So it's a TC community. Well, there's a TC community in there that's like KQM, but a little different.
Yes.
We do our TC fast.
Is it KQM but better or KQM but worse?
It's KQM with covered in dirt.
And red instead of purple.
Yeah, yeah.
So that means worse?
Could be better.
I just want to get you on record saying that. So you are saying that it is worse, right?
I will be clipping this and sending it in the general chat
Yep.
later. So. All right. So yeah, we're gonna catch up with our hosts and our guests today really fast here and hit the ground running. But before we want to start, we wanted to let you know that KQM is actually partnering with the Genius Invitation TCG Discord server for an upcoming TCG tournament. Look forward to fun competition along with prizes brought to you by our sponsor, Paimon's Bargains. And players looking to participate are encouraged to participate in weeklies in order to qualify for the final tournament. It seems like it's going to be a really big event, and we typically have like hundreds of players in open tournaments. And you can catch up on all of that information in the description of this podcast because someone didn't link me it. All right.
Did you read that all the script? What the hell?
No, I'm actually winging it. But
yeah,
just really good at reading
your
sponsored
voice.
segments.
You were doing some improv there.
all right, quick catch-up segment. How was Japan? KB and Tenten, you both went to Japan recently. How was it?
It's better in America.
Good country.
Oh my
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Yeah.
I mean, I like it a lot too.
Is there a lot of Genshin stuff
Mm.
to do there? Is
No,
it everywhere?
Actually, not really.
Oh,
What?
You didn't get
Oh.
to go during the Genshin collab cafe stuff.
Wait, there's a
you-
Genshin collab cafe.
Yeah, you could eat the food, the specialty dishes that all the
Oh,
characters.
you mean
make.
what's that
Yeah.
called? What's that place called? I don't remember.
It was the Paradise Suite Cafe. Okay, the
Paradise
food was
Suite, right?
bad, but it looked.
That's like a long time
like-
ago.
It was like a couple months before you went. I went earlier.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
No, they did reruns. So like this time it was Inazuma. So
Yeah, that's a long
Wow.
time ago.
what? I guess so. I guess so. September, October.
Okay.
But yeah,
Oh well. Did you
you
guys
can
have a
buy
great time
merch
there?
easily there. Yeah,
Yeah.
quite
Heck yeah,
nice.
bro.
Yeah. The Wi-Fi like networked, the public Wi-Fi is just called Genshin like Impact.
Well, that's in
They-
Akiyama, right?
Yeah. They
funny.
advertise hard over there. It's crazy.
And I saw Tenten going to maid cafes.
Oh no.
I went to like a lot.
Well, that's not what I
Yeah.
saw on Twitter.
I saw something else on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you guys see on Twitter? What the hell?
brother Tenten.
You're the one who posted it.
Listen,
All right.
my
listen,
Japanese is
listen.
very good. Okay.
Yeah. Josu desu ne?
I
Nihongo
what?
Josu?
What do you think I studied?
Oh.
Wow. All right. How about you, Zajef? You were sick for like a couple weeks. You feeling better now?
Yeah. I mean, it's not really sick. I just had like a clogged ear, and then it started being painful. And wait, hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
You're here.
Hello,
Okay,
beautiful
sorry,
people.
my monitor just turned off for some reason.
we,
So I was
we,
like, huh?
we still have you.
Yeah.
So
So,
it clogged you.
yeah, but and it stayed clogged for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and
That's
it
pain.
got like really fucking painful here and there. But
Mm.
now it's gone. We're vibing. Everything is fine.
Well, health scare is no fun, but I'm glad that you are feeling a lot better. And someone is telling me that you got a new PC and you actually are in HD.
True.
Congratulations with that.
Oh.
Live reaction in HD.
Live Zajef reaction HD.
Caught in literal 4K. Congratulations on all your success, and we all hope that you continue to be a force for good in the community, okay?
Oh, I don't know about that.
All right. So, 13 characters have actually come out so far in Sumeru, with another one on the way. No. Yeah, one more on the way. And the last time we had a podcast, we actually
more.
talked about... two more, yeah. And the last time we had a podcast, we talked about Nilo. That's a long time ago, guys. And in the interest of time, for everybody, we actually did something before the podcast that I think will be a way more fun to talk about how we think about all the units. We actually had everyone rank some characters based on however we want, like whatever criteria we wanted to. So, first up, I'm going to open up the sheet with all of our rankings on it.
Oh god. Wait, did you
And
combine them already?
Yes, I did combine them already. And I will go ahead and share my screen with you guys so that you can see.
Why is
But
my sheet
do you guys
fucked up?
want to... Do you want to go one by one, or do you want to go...
Oh, did
Okay,
you
what
drag
you-
the cells, 1010? They're listed by reference.
Tenta, what
Oh.
do you do?
I did.
I'll
Oh,
fix it.
no.
I'll fix it. There you go. Okay. All right. So these are only the characters from Sumeru, not a tier list or anything, but our general impressions of how these are. And this is our rankings.
Separate for
Um,
little second? Oh my god. Sim, pew.
All right. So, do you want to start off, Zajef?
No.
Okay, who wants to start off?
I think we should do like unit by unit,
Sure.
Mm.
Okay,
not person by person.
that's
We could
fine.
talk
Okay, let's
about
start the
the
first one.
controversial
Nakita's
Let's-
first on
disparities.
everyone, bro.
Let's actually go through one by one and maybe talk about how we kind of evaluated the units, right? Everyone always values different things, and maybe some of us did more holistically. Maybe some of us considered constellations very heavily. So, yeah, let's start off with KB. How did you rank your units?
For the most part, okay, just to get this out of the way, I don't consider Farazan C0 a thing. Like C0 to C5 just doesn't exist to me. If you
Okay,
like,
based.
she's a character that just does not exist at those constellations. So I didn't take that into account. She's just an expensive unit that is a thing that the community has to deal with, unfortunately. But when you get her C6, that's why it's so high. I think everyone here kind of agrees with like the Nahida stuff, but overall, I just kind of mainly focus on just generalized power, or like I heavily penalized units with cringe stuff like Kole missing E.
True.
Yeah, like
Wait,
if
and
I
you
don't
didn't- you
enjoy
didn't
playing the
penalize
character,
Farazan? Damn.
okay, well at C6 it just feels good. She makes like cringe characters feel good, like Wanderer. Oh my god.
All right, and no changing these rankings, by the way. All right,
Yeah.
it's more fun this way. All right, Ayzel, how did you rank them?
I'm gonna be honest. I ranked these in like the 2 minutes before we started the podcast, so I didn't really have a criteria for ranking them besides how good do I feel they are. So, if you ask me like why is X above Y, I probably could not tell you. I think generally what I try to consider when I'm ranking a unit though, is like how good are they for a general player. So, for example, like Nahida is better than Dendro Traveler, of course, but if someone doesn't have Nahida, Dendro Traveler is a very good alternative. So Dendro Traveler is pretty high up on my rankings. Everything else is kind of just like I feel. I think like Farazan specifically, I can talk about a little bit. She's relatively far down because while it is true she like doubles Xiao and other Animo DPSs like damage by like 2 times. When you have her at C6, like so few people have her at C6 because her banner was pretty recent. Well, not that recent, but like still in the grand scheme of things, she hasn't had many banners. So you probably would not have a C6 Farazan, and I wouldn't like factor that into consideration whenever I'm evaluating her or any other like recently released 4-star.
Okay.
I guess if anyone has any questions for like what I have my rankings as, I can like answer questions. But
We'll be going through
I
the
wouldn't
units
be able
one
to
by
answer
one.
Too many.
Yeah.
We'll be going through them one by one, and we'll generally have them in the position. I don't think we'll split too
Mhm.
many hairs on exact placements. But how about you, Tenten? How did you evaluate your list?
I don't know. Gut feeling. I mean, I was like ranking this thing like in my meeting, so
This is a theory crafting podcast,
Yeah.
and two of you guys ranked it solely based on feeling. I love it. Okay. I think we
I
need.
think, like,
How I rank them, it looks pretty accurate.
dude, it looks. It's so hard to rank them exact order. Like that's like the hardest part.
Okay, well, you know what? If you two get flamed for Feels Crafting, I don't have to say anything.
Okay,
And
I'll be honest.
Zajef.
I'm looking at this.
Similar to yours.
We all have like similar take anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's really that many differences, anyways, so it doesn't really matter.
All right. Well, I'll be on the hunt for new co-hosts in a couple weeks. If anyone in chat or anyone listening has any suggestions, please DM me. And Zajef, how did you evaluate them?
Yep. I mean, it's kind of a mix of just like performance at low investment and just how valuable to an account I think they are.
Mhm.
Which is like I think that the biggest difference that my list has with the others is Yao Yao's position.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it that different? I don't think so. Is it?
I mean, I have her second.
Yeah, but the three of us have it at fur, and then Xavier
Yeah,
at
but,
four,
like-
so it's not that different.
Shut up.
Yeah. But what I'm noticing, she's high on everyone, and then the two whale players have her
Well,
like
I mean,
slightly lower. But that's
It's
it.
interesting because
Yeah.
Zajef is putting her a 4-star above a couple of 5 stars, right? Not just one, but 2 5-stars that came up.
Well, 3, 4.
I'm talking
Right,
about the
like,
I mean,
good
every-
ones, okay?
You mean every 5-star that's not Nahida?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, because basically, I think that her like healer role, like personally, I don't really use healers that often, but that doesn't mean that I don't understand why a lot of people do. And being able to have a healer that does everything that a healer does while also having like pretty solid elemental application and just being a completely like fine option as like your solo dendro application kind of makes her value like a little bit insane in my opinion in a lot of the teams.
Sure. Yeah, she
And
definitely
it's
reminds me of some of the 1.0 units.
yeah, basically she feels like a complete fucking unit, which when you look at the 4 stars that have been released, the last time a unit has felt actually complete as a 4-star, like at C0, was probably like Rosaria in 1.1, 1.2.
That's
It was
a
the child patch.
That's a long time. Okay.
Yeah, that's a long
then-
ass time ago.
That
But
is
she
true.
feels complete, and I think that her role consolidation is actually enough to put her above units that will like have performance that's higher because it lets you have that healer and have more flexibility for the other units you put on your team.
All right.
I've been liking a lot of a lot of the slightly danker dendro teams, right? We've got some
We can
curry,
get into
some
that.
salad. Some,
We can get into that in a second. We'll go through the
but
units one by one here.
yeah, but specifically with Yao Yao, what's nice is because she's a healer, and because a lot of those like dank team archetypes need specifically like 4 different elements, sometimes it can be very difficult to slot in a healer in those teams. You kind of just don't have any options because all of your units, like all of the elements that could be a healer, like you need them to do something that the healers just don't do. And because Yao Yao still does the thing that the Dendro unit needs to do in those teams, which is just apply Dendro, then I mean her value just ends up being pretty high.
Makes sense. And then finally, for my criteria, I kind of evaluated them fairly holistically. Like Zajef, I really value like what it means to an account to pull these units. And I definitely took into account like how bad they feel without their constellations. I definitely weight things further towards C0 even for 4 stars. And especially so because we're still in the Sumeru region. Maybe I would consider, maybe some of the Inazuma 4 stars at 6 stars now, but or at Constellation 6 now. But I mean, personally, I still don't have a Kuki, and I pulled on 3 banners for her. So that's kind of my thought process.
Sounds a tiny little bit like a skill issue, if we're being honest with each other here.
Honestly, it might be a wallet issue, but I don't know. I've been told that I might be just too ugly to own Kuki. Alright.
Honestly, that sounds kind of accurate. Maybe
I'll
if you
have to
change
talk
your
to my
shirt
doctor.
or something.
Yeah, I might have to talk to my doctor about that.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
got called fat, and now you're getting called ugly as well.
Unlucky. Not auspicious, actually. All right. Let's go through these maybe by release date, unless any of you guys have a preference.
Nope.
All right. Dendro main character, or Dendro Traveler. How do we feel about this character? We'll make these really quick. Don't need to go super in specific details, otherwise we're going to spend actually 2 hours here.
Very good.
Anyone?
I like.
Yeah, the points of
He's my
Denver-
favorite traveler
Nice.
variation by far.
Mhm.
Like I think everyone can agree on
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he's good, but he just kind of cringe to play. That's all.
Do you
He's
have
kinda
constellations
cringe.
on the Dendro Traveler, Tenten?
I do.
How many? Okay, what does C2 do, Tenten?
It said his elemental burst, right?
Okay.
What? You think I don't play this game or something?
Yes, we do think you don't play this game.
Yeah, a little, but I mean, you got the answer right, so I guess your heart's in the right place. All right,
Mhm.
Dendro Traveler applies Dendro for unit, free constellations, solid energy, solid burst that applies Dendro over time. it can infuse and take on different properties with different elements, and you can avoid these specifically with Pyro because it's a bad, quote unquote, bad reaction, right? Overall, we're all thinking he falls in towards the upper end, or at least in the middle of the pack here for Sumeru, it looks like. Any comments?
I mean,
I think
I
just
just
on
think it's nice
energy-
that they gave
yeah.
him to us. I wasn't expecting a character
Yeah.
like that for free.
Yeah,
the
I think
thing,
my big issue. Oh, Zajef, you go ahead. Sorry.
I think the biggest thing about DMC is that they're a very good unit. It's just they then followed their release with like other units that do kind of what they do but better, right? Like you look at Nahida and it's pretty hard to justify playing the main character over her in a bunch of different teams. Although there are some teams where DMC is actually kind of just a better option, or at least not a big loss. But it's I feel that if Nahida didn't exist, DMC would probably be a lot higher in everyone's list. Like not just one step higher
absolutely.
because
Oh yeah, he'll be in much higher demand.
yeah.
I think for me, like, Alhaitham and Nahid definitely crowd out Dendro app. Dendro application is something that's pretty good. Like, it's very reminiscent of Hydro application in terms of like how strong its utility is, and yeah, there's just units that kind of do it better and do it differently. But he still has a slot in your account just because sometimes you don't have these characters or you want to apply Dendro differently, specifically off field with less intensity. Next up, we have Tainari, or Tignari, I should say. He is the first Dendro 5-star that we've got, besides, the Traveler, I suppose. But he was there for the release of Sumeru. He has a taunt. He's mostly a spread DPS or a source of Dendro for aggravate teams. How do we feel on him?
I don't like him, especially considering he's standard 5-star.
He's a very good unit in single target and a fucking dysfunctional piece of shit in AoE. I think is the best way to put it. The variance in his performance between AoE and single target is really high, but that means that if you have a pretty strong account already and you have teams that can deal with different situations, he's actually pretty good because he's got some pretty good single target teams.
He also has interesting like field time, like duration and like rotation length. It's cool. I like it.
That's actually my favorite thing about him. Personally, the 12-second, like 12-second and a half, 13-second rotation with something like Zhongli Official and the Dendro Traveler or Yai is actually pretty attractive to me. I like flying through all my characters and making use of them all, and Tainari is definitely someone that can enable that. I'm actually a big proponent of his taunt as well, even though I have him like right in the middle. I do think Tignari is pretty useful. All right. Any closing thoughts here? All right. Kale or Kali.
Cringe to play.
Yeah, she's
God.
so bad to play.
Like she is pretty good because it's fucking Dendro. Like you can't be bad.
Yes.
But holy fucking guys of cringe. She like her only redeeming quality is that she's kind of nice in overworld because she's not burst reliant for her application. Except now we have Yao Yao that also does that, but her skill doesn't just start fucking missing because there was a slight slope.
I think
Right. I feel like her peers just got really stacked. Like as every Dendro character started coming out. Like
it's like the DMC issue. You just have a lot of Dendro characters released.
Competition, yeah.
Really? I have always thought that she was kind of cringe.
yeah,
I
but,
would
like she has too many
She was
problems.
the only Dendro in the game at launch, right?
Yeah,
But
she was your
Comparatively-
mandate
It was
Dendro.
her and DMC and Tainari, but
I've
like you probably didn't
always-
have Tainari, so it was just DMC.
I've always preferred DMC over Kale, just because of how cringe her burst is. I hate how low her uptime is. It's very
everything about Cole is
antithetical.
cringe.
No, well,
Well, she does have the 15-second uptime or 15-second rotation length, which is actually it makes her feel way better than DMC and like TF Kazuha teams. But outside of that, I don't really think there are too many uses for her.
in defense of
She
Kale, I like her
is-
in aggravate and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think she's actually pretty good in Nilo teams as well. Because I mean, Nilo teams don't have rotations. You kind of just mash your keyboard and things happen. And so having a unit that isn't burst reliant and can front load application with like sacrificial bow or something like that is actually pretty useful if you end up going for a double dendro variation of a Nilo team. She won't be enough dendro out by herself, so you are going to need to do double dendro, but it's okay. Like, it's not the best option, especially now that Yao Yao's out. I'd probably always go Yao Yao over her.
Right.
But it's still pretty good.
There's a couple
Also,
detours we can take here real quick.
Yeah.
Just to note, like, our worst on this list doesn't mean that they're the worst unit in the game. Mostly. It's just, keep in mind, it's just a ranking of what we think about the Sumeru units, not contextualized with their surrounding contemporary units, right? Go ahead, KB.
Oh, I was gonna say it's kind of weird that they also like put some of her application behind the cons. I don't like that, but considering she was
Well-
supposed to be like your budget unit you throw in for Dendro.
It's okay because she was really broken in that card game for a little bit, and then she got kneecapped, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough just to nerf like her and like her talent card. They also had her nerf the whole fucking reaction she relied on.
We can talk about the TCG after this, but moving on. I think
Moving
Dory
on.
was next. I think.
Maybe.
I think
Maybe.
well, whatever. I'll do it in an order. Dory. I think she's
was Dory,
supposed to be
correct.
some sort of like Eula support. I think she also has some function in some Hyperbloom teams with some utility. She generates energy and flat energy, and she's able to heal, I believe, right?
You make her sound like she's actually good, but she's the bottom three on every single person.
Okay, like design wise, like what they're going for, good concept, and then the numbers were just so low for a lot of things that it just made it not work. Like you cannot battery Eula with her. Like it's not a pleasant
she needs
experience.
a battery.
Yeah.
True.
It's the good old Electro MC conundrum. This is a battery that needs a battery.
I don't
Think of,
even
like,
think that she
her
actually gets
mini
fixed by constellations.
Not
You
really.
can play her. You can play her TF on field at C6.
Okay.
I just don't like her mini game. Her mini game like is cringe.
She was I don't know, I think Dory's always been a little bit controversial, from her voice lines to the nature of being short, of the short body type, and like her in-game performance not being too good. Does anyone here have anything to say in defense of Dory, at least?
Genie looks cool and funny.
Yes, look cool.
You
I
can
like
run
her
around
in-
and proc
funny.
Hyperbloom. That's funny.
I like her normal attacks. They're very cute. She's okay in the overworld. Kind of hard to play because of the energy problem.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really do that much damage, but I mean, it's marginal healing. Like if you're running around like killing Hilichurls, why not? But
If you don't own Cookie or Raiden or any Electro units, you can use her for Hyperbloom. So that's that.
oh god.
I finally have a use for my R5 bell. I think that's the best argument I can make for Dory.
Nice job.
Oh, actually, her Electro application is pretty shit, but she does hit with Electro pretty fast, which means that when you generate seeds very quickly, for example, with like on-field Child, other Electro units will be hitting the seeds too slowly, so you'll generate too many seeds. You'll have like 3 or 4 at the same time, and you won't be able to get all of them to deal Hyperloom damage, because Hyperloom has a limit of 2 per 0.5 seconds. Because Dory hits faster, you can technically get more seeds if you generate more of them, but also it doesn't last as long, and she needs a fuck ton of ER, so it's not even really better. But it's a nice thing to know. It's like one thing that she can do, I guess.
Surely something in the future will come to fix her. Surely.
Surely.
Maybe she'll get the Toma and Kuki treatment with the Hydro. All right.
Early.
Up next, we'll do Layla. She is a cryo shielder who kind of specializes in teams where you spam elemental skills, it seems. And it seems that her damage is not anything to really care about. And it's mostly defensive utility. How do we feel about her?
Okay, I have to clarify. Artesian forgot to add Layla when I did the list, so I don't know where to put her, and she just ended up hitting in the bottom.
Damn.
Okay. Well, I mean, everyone has her mostly near the bottom except for Ayzel and Reigns, who kind
Ayzel.
of
Yeah, now that I think about it, I
straddling the
would
middle.
have put her lower. But
You think
No
Layla?
like
takesies,
defensive utility
backsies,
a lot.
Ayzel.
Yeah.
Huh? I
No
can't take
takesies,
it
backsies.
back.
Wait, except for Layla on the same rank as Ayzel though.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess just because I had her highest, like I guess I need to justify myself for that. I think that Layla and defensive utility is very nice. Just because I think that like generally I tend to value shielding characters very highly. Just because I think that like resistance to interruption or prevention of interruption is just so important for people to execute correctly. Because like we can talk all we want about perfect rotations, whatever, blah blah blah, but if you get stunned in the middle of your rotation, like you can't do it. So that's just a general rule for why I tend to value defensive utility highly. Also, like I play Razor. That's probably another reason.
Oh my god, you mentioned Razor.
But other than that, I guess like beyond that, I don't really have a reason to put her as high as I do. Like I can't move her down at this point, but I don't think she belongs that high. It was just like a bit crunched for time, so I just had to put her somewhere, I guess.
All right, how about for the rest of us? We think she's kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here, and definitely like bottom 5 for all of us. What are we thinking?
Yeah, I think her biggest issue, like as is the case with some of the other units we'll talk about in a bit, is that she's competing with another unit that can do her job arguably better. Her biggest issue is that like what she does is she generates energy, she shields, and she deals damage, right? But in order for you to generate the energy, your shield can't break. If your shield breaks, you stop generating energy. Which means that unless you're like actually investing very highly into her, her shield is going to be pretty piss weak, especially at C0.
Mm-hmm.
And then you won't generate energy, and she's just basically not really going to be doing anything for your team. And what you'll have to do is you'll have to play as if you didn't have a shield, because if you lose your shield, you can't do your rotations anymore. And so the big like issue with that is if you're at low investment, it's really hard to make her work. And if you're at high investment, why go for a unit that like has a little bit of damage instead of going for a unit that is a little bit more defensive focus, or just doesn't have like defensive focus and is just like completely offensive focus, right? So if you need some defensive utility, if you're at high investment, you're still going to be able to clear if you use a unit that doesn't do that much damage like Rosaria. And if you're trying to speed run, well, you're not going to put a unit on your team just because they're a healer, right? You're just going to focus only on damage. And so that kind of leaves her without a real niche, without a real spot in the meta, in my opinion. So I'm kind of just like, eh. She's not... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just curious though. If you think that she doesn't have a niche, why would you put her higher than Faruzan? Because I guess like you could argue that like Faruzan C0 to C5 is just like not a niche as well. But
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
I think C0 Faruzan is gonna give you more of a headache trying to make her work, like than the positive of having a unit that of like clearing the content. I literally think it is not worth playing her for most people.
Okay, I guess that's fair then.
I mean,
Because
to
I
be
was
fair,
just
like
curious why you had her higher than Farazan.
Layla is like a fine character, just like you would just never actually run her. So
Yeah, but like it's one of those things where like if you don't have Diona or you don't like Diona, yeah, you can use Layla. Like she's still a completely functional unit, and she does have a thing she's good at. It's just generally I'd rather run one of the other units that are good at that thing.
All right, KB,
But
you're
like overall, she's still fine.
I mean, I don't have too many strong opinions about Layla. She can be an upgrade compared to Diona and Eula teams for offensive things. Although it's good to mention that even though Layla's shield can be higher, if you account for Diona's like passive where she reduces the enemy's attack and the healing, the effective amount of HP you have with Diona is significantly more, which makes her more comfy at the cost of like not bringing as much damage. But like you're really splitting hairs if you're going to be contesting Layla's damage and Diona's
Yeah,
damage like
if
for
you're
your team.
counting
Like,
that damage, oh my god.
I think most people don't care about the uplift that you would get from slotting in Layla over Diona for that a
Well,
Eula team, right?
technically, Diona gives you more damage because Diona gives you movement speed, which means you can Dragon Strike with Razor. So technically, she is better for team damage.
True.
No one plays like that. No one
I
plays
like that. Shut up.
for
You
I
don't
actually
play the game,
specifically
Ayzel.
used
What do you
Diona for
mean?
that. I do play the game.
Also,
For me, I
Diona
think
gave
everyone
Alpha
else
mastery.
is. I think
Sorry, Art, what were you saying?
I think we've all kind of touched on how I feel about her in little ways. She doesn't really feel very useful to like a fully fleshed out account. I wouldn't recommend anyone pulling for her because she probably won't perform any better than other options that you could get. Particularly, I'm not a really big fan of how strong or how weak her shield is until like C1. Um, and I'm not really a big fan of her damage. Even with Shinha's quills, it just is not something that I'm really banking on. I think shielding for cryo specifically is probably one of the less useful types of shields, uh, just because of how potent freeze is, and how much you have, like how much competition you have in cryo teams. And more often than not, I see people kind of edging around, like using Layla in non-freeze teams as like a flex slot, where like Zhongli would be typically. But obviously, not to say Layla's any comparable, but you know. And to continue on, moving on to the next unit, and in kind of the I don't know. I think we're on a pretty negative streak here, and we'll keep it going for a little bit. Candace or Kandaka? She's at the bottom of almost
Everyone but
every
Zajef.
single one of our rankings. She's
Yeah,
at the bottom
considering
three.
Bottom
Tenten only put Layla at the bottom because he didn't have time to put her somewhere, I'm the only one who doesn't have her at the bottom.
Okay,
It's at the
well,
bottom.
second from the bottom is not too
Yes.
far away, but let's go over real quick. Hydro Infusion and cool auto attacks. You can feel free to explain to us, Zajef, why you think Candace is not at the bottom.
Yeah, I think that there are actually situations where you could argue for her being like more towards the middle of the pack. But if you told me that like a week ago, I would have laughed at you. Like I would have laughed you out of the room. I think that Yao Yao's release has made her like significantly more. Well, I'd say that she went from basically being a downgrade in every single team she's in to actually being a pretty solid option in one of the teams. So specifically, when you're looking at her hydro application in AoE, without C6, it's not the best. You get like 3 hydro apps from your swaps, your burst, and then you get the hydro app from your infused normal attacks. C6, it starts getting a little bit better. You get like an additional. I don't actually know how many C6 procs you get. It's probably something like 4 or 5, maybe something like that. But that paired with the hydro infusion, the fact that when you're playing Yao Yao and Nilo teams, you often want to actually stay on her, and usually when you do that, well, I mean, you're on a character who can have their attacks infused, so you can build Yao Yao like with a bunch of EM. And because Yao Yao's healing from her burst is so potent, which I mean we'll get to in a while, you don't actually need to build her full like healing for her to be able to more than out heal the self damage from your bloom, and arguably also the damage from the enemies. And so that gives her that basically that one team where like I've done a bunch of testing on her, and honestly, I think it felt better than Kokomi
Interesting.
in those Nilo teams.
Okay.
I'm not too confident on that because obviously I don't have Nilo on my main account. I don't have her on my free-to-play where I have Nilo. So I had to like basically hop from account to account, and it's very hard to compare between different accounts because like different artifact quality, different like investment levels and all that. Right? So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But honestly, like from what I saw, it did actually generally feel better than the Kokomi versions, which very much surprised me. But like I'm pretty happy with that because I think that outside of that, it's very fair to have her as the bottom unit in Sumeru.
Mhm.
For
I guess my
quick
question
questions,
for you is,
actually.
yeah, you
Yeah.
go first.
A couple quick questions, not just to cover our asses here, but I'm genuinely curious.
Mhm.
Are you talking about EM Kokomi here?
Yes.
And how much healing are you speccing into on Kandaka here? Like
What do you
maybe
mean?
per tick? Like how much per tick are you getting?
Healing?
Yeah.
She doesn't heal. You mean
Oh.
on Yaya?
Yeah, sorry.
I have no clue. It's just Yao Yao's healing is not in big numbers. It's like in so many small numbers. I don't
I'm
know. I just know
told-
that I don't die.
I'm told that by XF3 that Yao Yao is enough for Nilo teams, even when you're fully spec'd. So on that front, seems that Kandaka with Yao Yao might
Really?
seem to have some kind of utility here. I will tentatively agree with you. It seems to work, like
I
like
mean,
actual theory
Without her
crafting.
burst, it's not. But her burst, because it heals the whole team, right? So you can
Mhm.
like take damage between different units. You don't want to just stay on Yao Yao for the whole rotation. You want to swap between her and Kandaka, and you want to also go to your Nilo every here and there, go to your Nahida, refresh your E, and all that, which means that the damage that you take is split between different units, which means that effectively, instead of healing on one of the characters that takes damage, you're healing on 4, which quadruples how much damage you can effectively take.
Okay, yeah, I guess my question was just why not Xingqiu or Yellen in that slot?
The Hydro application in AoE is better.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's fair.
Right, because Kandaka's Hydro application is actual AoE, and it's relatively decent size AoE. Whereas Xingqiu and Yellen are basically exclusively single target, which obviously makes them better options to like pad the weaknesses of Nilo teams, but maybe not always better options to play to Nilo team's strengths, right? Which is the AoE.
Right, I guess that's fair. I'm just thinking, like, I am aware that Kandake does the AoE Hydro thing. I'm just wondering, given that Xingqiu and Yoan are so much, or I don't know how much stronger they are in single target. I've never played this Nilo team. But given that they are stronger in single target, I'm just wondering if that would make up for the weakness in AoE. And I guess that's
it definitely can. Like at the end of the day, it's fucking like it's Xingqiu, like bro.
Yeah.
But if you're a fine replacement for Xingqiu in some situations, that's very good. Like that's high praise, right? And I'm still again right. I want to make it very clear. I'm not saying she's great. She's still the second worst unit that I have, and that's probably not changing anytime soon. But the main reason why I am mainly positive about her is because I know no one else is gonna be. So, and I think it's important to talk about those strengths.
I'm
Actually thought about
hopeful. Oh, go ahead, Tenten.
I thought about putting Candace higher because of Yao Yao, but then I'm like, that's probably still like the bottom, so whatever.
I am hopeful to find more uses for Kandaka. She looks very cool. And she is a bit
Oh, there's-
underexplored, I think. But I think in Watching Funeral Parlor, they actually have like this really weird slant with trying to force Kandaka with literally everybody. So
Okay, it's not
maybe.
coming from me, even though I do like her design. But one thing I did want to touch up on was I've noticed I've seen this like sentiment, or not sentiment, but this statement about her a couple times, like on YouTube Shorts or the more casual non-theory crafting community. It's talking about her, how she makes normal attacks hit harder, kind of like Yunjin. And the argument is Yunjin can't do it as well in AoE because you run out of stacks. It's per target, right? For Yunjin, you can hit up to 30 things. And so I went and did calcs on that just to like have a solid thing that I can point at. And for Candace to be better than Yunjin for Ayato, for example, which is probably like the best case for her, Ayato hits a lot of targets really easily. You would have to hit 7.5 like units every time.
Are you
for
just talking about the damage buff, or are you talking like whole team
Just
DPS?
No, just the damage buff.
Okay,
And this
because
is-
she
yeah.
does have a pretty good C6 that like it generally doesn't matter because her base kit is kind of garbage. But like her C6 is actually pretty good, like in terms of
Right.
damage that it's adding to your team, and she generates hydro particles, which people never build enough ER on their Ayato, but Ayato
That is true.
pretty burst reliant, and generating those hydro particles it can be nice.
Mm.
I still think that generally I'd rather Yunjin if you're going to be running a normal attack buffer. I also think that I would rather not run a normal attack buffer and generally.
That's what I was gonna say.
Right. It's not the recommendation, but it's the comparison people are making. It's like, well, she can carve out a niche here, and I wanted to highlight that it is extremely difficult to overcome how powerful Yunjin's buff is,
Okay.
and this is a C0 to C0 comparison where
Ain't no
That's
fucking
what
way I'm
Yunjin's
using
got.
Yunjin.
Yeah.
With
Yunjin
Yunjin's
gets a lot
constellation
more
is
buffs
You didn't get so much
with
from
her
a
constellations.
constellation.
Yeah. Whereas Candace, you get the C6, and that's like really it.
We spent 15 minutes talking about how the bottom character is
Wait, no.
Well,
playable in some
Oh no.
all right. Well,
okay,
here,
we're
let's
moving
pick up
on.
the pace then. We're going on.
All right.
Nilo, we're gonna revisit her real quick. Don't need to go into super specific detail again, guys, but here we go. Nilo, last time we talked about her, Nahida was not a thing. How do we feel about her? She is a premier bloom unit, specifically bloom. She converts her cores to bountiful cores, I believe what they're called, and increases all bloom damage at the cost of only being able to run hydro and dendro units in her team. Is this restriction too much? We'll touch up on this again.
Don't mind the
I think it's a lot
restriction.
better than she
but-
was last time we talked about her.
I actually think this is one of the things that people don't understand. It's like, yeah, she was not very good when she first came out, but now, like, you can actually see on this sheet, we all have her at the top position at 2, 3, 4, actually. So even her worst position in this sheet is 4th, and her team comp is just so much better now with like Nahida or even Yao Yao. So I actually think she's unironically a really good character now.
She's really cool.
Mhm.
She like the thing with the whole restriction. I personally wasn't that upset about it compared to a lot of people I have talked to, mainly because I had a feeling that once the dendro ecosystem gets fleshed out, you can just run her, and she does do this niche really well. And I think she has a lot of flavor as a unit. Like you're really going for a certain kind of thematic of random shit exploding, and
Right.
even with
I think-
the release of Yao Yao, it's like even better now, and I really like that kind of archetype.
Yeah, like you
being
were
a thing.
saying, when Neo initially released, a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, just wait for a Dendro healer, and then she'll get better." And then Yaya came out, so now we have the Dendro healer.
Yeah.
So
She got
of
better.
course she got better. Yeah.
It got better. Yeah.
Oh my god, these TCers, man.
We are
I can't
really
believe
good
they're
at
changing their
TCing,
minds.
yes.
They didn't believe, bro. I'm cringing. I'm dying of cringe.
I do think,
Yeah,
But for
that
real-
just on a sorry. Art.
No, go ahead, finish.
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna continue and say that I do think, though, like personally, like this has no like impact on her actual power level evaluation. Like I put her second. I think she's a really good unit, but I just don't like the restriction at all. I think from like I like to make meme teams. I like to make teams that uh should not like don't fit into like standard team archetypes. I love playing like Thundering Furry Razor. I really like playing
Yes.
just throw shit at it and see if it works, like EM Xin Yan. And I think the fact that Nilo has this restriction and prevents you to some degree from like using her in those teams just makes me not like her like on a personal level, not like her character or anything, just the way that her kit works. But again, like I will acknowledge she is a really good character. I just don't like that restriction.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Another
Same.
like pretty big downside to that restriction is how reliant it makes her on like other specific units, which means that if you don't have those units, she's kind of shit.
Yeah, I would say
That is
don't
true.
pull for her if you don't have any of the following, like Nahida, Kokomi, Yao Yao. These are like pretty core units into making her work.
Mhm.
For me personally, I also think that the restriction is
Gangling.
not something that's fun to deal with, but I will acknowledge that Nilo is shaping up to be one of the most like powerful AoE units that we have in the game right now, and it's getting like pretty hard to contest this.
It's also not as dependent on grouping with the bloom size for like an AoE unit. Usually you have to like run Venti to make your AoE work. Her, it's like less of a thing. Of course, if we had a hydro grouper, it would be even better for her, right? But in the context,
Yeah,
like
co-partner.
she doesn't
We're
even
not
have a
getting
group.
one of those.
Yeah.
The
The fact that we
last-
have an AoE team that's large is nice.
The last thing I will say is that Nilo, I'm not sure how her reaction counts are, but the last time I heard anything about them, it turned out that the reaction counts are not really consistent and they're being shared a lot by the other units, meaning that's a lot of investment into a lot of elemental mastery.
Yeah. The
It's
I
very
mean,
dependent on
it's almost
the
become
units.
a meme how uncalcable Nilo teams are. Like
Yeah.
you can calc them and all, but like you press the wrong button one time and your team DPS is gonna get divided by 2.
Yeah, and the only way to prevent that is to literally max out the EM on 4 different units, which is extremely ridiculous. But
But one thing about that is that like it's not really if you press the wrong button one time. It's more like there's just so many things that you can do that will like make small differences in your output, and it's like at the end of the day, most people end up just fucking like bashing their head against the wall until it works, and it kind of does if you have like all the units that can make her easier to play, like Nahida and stuff like that.
yeah, I won't like try to make it bigger a thing than it is. It technically is not so hard. You really only need like the Deepwood memory set on one of them, and then everyone else can just use random EM pieces with an elemental or an energy recharge, and that'll work. But it is something to keep in mind. You pay a lot. You're going to pay a lot for making Nilo work, especially if you want her to work at like her highest level.
But you
Alright.
do get a pretty like substantial upside out of that, which is
Oh yeah.
she works pretty well with a lot of the units that you don't really want to use elsewhere. I was talking earlier about Kaneka. You can also use like potentially Barbara, and she actually just works very well once
I
you
will
reach the kind of investment thresholds that you need.
Ender Traveler still works.
I will say, like, when you're farming for artifacts for her, you hit the ceiling faster, much faster than like a ADC build, I'd say. And I
Yeah, I mean
think
that's the
that's really
case
nice.
for all the transformative dendro reactions. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
I think
like the
it's
fact that
specifically
you
for her
throw,
because you don't need the set. You don't need the set bonus. At least
yeah, you
for
throw
3
HP
other
HP on her,
characters.
and it's really nice. You're not chasing like the substats on your pieces, like you're just chasing like the main stats, which
Alright.
for a lot of people, like it can be bearable. Like it's not. I don't think it's that bad, but I have a
Alright.
warped perspective on that.
I promise we'll get to Nahida soon and we can say good things.
Hmm.
Next one is Sino. Next one is Sino.
Sino, the dog.
Sino
The
was kind of
dog.
all over the place. Oh, I
He's
don't know if he's Turning the bottom mid in our sheet look like actually have him the highest out of everyone, but I still think he's kind of bad.
All right.
Sino
Tenten.
is good in Aggravate and good in Hyper Bloom. But the thing is, Kutsing is better in Aggravate, and Yai is better in Aggravate, and Raiden is better in Hyper Bloom. So he's just sitting there like, yes, I am good at these things. You see all of those units that are excellent at these things, but I am good, and that's that.
Yeah,
And,
that's
like,
actually
that's
kind of
fine.
my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine, and like you can make him work, and he's gonna be good. But if you're like pulling like mainly for like how good the unit is, he's never gonna be the optimal option. He's just a fine one, but that's okay.
How do we feel about his kit in general? Is it fun? How is
Dude,
the
I
quick
hate his
time event?
overworld.
No, he's cringe to play.
Oh,
His
okay.
overworld
Well,
is very.
I thought
is
we were
very
gonna
clunky
try to say
feeling.
something cool here, like, oh, his animations are pretty cool.
No.
But everyone
No.
seems to
No.
just hate him here. Okay.
Well,
Well,
okay,
fuck me,
think
I
the
guess.
exact same as Zajef, which is why I kind of put him high. It's like his aggravate team and hyper team are unironically like not bad, but A, he's cringe to play, and B, like he's not as good as some of the other unit like Kaching exactly. So like he's bad in that sense.
I think he suffers
If you like
from
staying on one unit for a long time, you probably like him. But
Also, he's cringe
Yeah.
to play.
That's what I
have
was
to say
gonna
that like
say.
so many times.
He suffers
If
from
you
the
quit
problem
the
that
game-
Zhao has.
If you quit the game when Dendro came out and you haven't like heard, Kutsing is actually good now. Like this isn't to say that he's bad. Like
yeah,
Kutsing just
Kutsing's
got
solid.
a lot better with Dendro.
Mhm.
Giga
And she's actually
Chad.
good now.
I actually flew out to Hong Kong to talk to Dawei about this. We really need the Kaching buffs, and we threatened
And
to
he just
shut
made a
down
whole
Kaching
element
buffs.
for us.
Yeah, he just
Yeah.
made all of Dendro for it. It's great. But
Especially this.
I think that's all we really have to say about Sino, right? He's just on
Yep.
field for a really long time. He has some pretty clunky interactions with other supports because of the nature of how he does his damage. His QTE is pretty cool. Nothing too substantial, I think.
Another upside that he has over Kutsing is that, well, it's sometimes an upside, sometimes a downside. But because Kutsing is standard and he's not, that means that his constellations are better. Which means that if you're a whale, like you can make him perform better.
Mhm.
Which is
I
You
think-
will.
I guess.
I would say
kind
don't
of like-
feel bad for liking Sino. He's a perfectly fine unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my criticism of Sino, kind of on the flip side of what Zajef was saying, is that if you're like a low investment player or you've been playing for like a decent bit, you're like kind of a dolphin, not really a dolphin, you probably have Raiden, you probably have Kutsing. The value that Sino brings to your account compared to Unlimited 5-star and Raiden, who is like very, very, very good, and someone who is on standard banner, like the fact that he is limited versus those two, I think just kind of makes me not value him very much. So that's why I have him rather low on my list. But yeah, I agree with everything else that was said.
Don't feel bad for liking him. Don't take the wrong thing
Mhm.
away from here. He's in the middle. Just
You should be ashamed of yourself.
I can't believe you
True.
wasted your money on this. What the fuck? All right. But
Clip
this
it.
is it. The Dendro Archon herself, Lesser Lord Nahida, the game destroyer, the meta fucking murderer, the one who
He sucks.
decapitated Hu Tao with nothing but hopping. Nahida,
Pretty good.
how are we feeling? Tri-Karma
He's pretty good.
Purification, Elemental Mastery Scaling that converts into critical damage, scales with almost every single stat. How do we feel?
Pretty good.
I actually think Nahida is outright unfair. I actually think that her kid is outright unfair. There's no way her elemental skill should act like that.
I mean, basically, they made Dendro like an element that has like a really high floor, right? Where you can get away with it with like a really low amount of investment because the base damage for the reactions is really high. And then they came out with a unit that applies that element like a fuck ton, and then also deals good damage. And then also has like constellations that make it so that if you are a whale, Dendro's not really just a fucking like low investment thing anymore, because her constellations like actually improve the transformative reactions. And
Her
so it's just like,
constellations are crazy.
so it's just like, yeah, like she's, yep, Yep.
For context here, if you look at the Dendro units that come before Nahida, the Dendro Traveler, Tignari, and Kale, the reason why Dendro's floor was like kind of being held back, or its ceiling was being held back, is because we were lacking like a long-term, like off-field, consistent application of Dendro. And Nahida came around, and she actually does and applies too much Dendro. Some compositions actually run into the problem where her application on her Trikarma Purification and her Elemental Skill cast are just too much. And she ends up enabling so much off-field, but the problem, I think, is her being on-field as a driver, or enabling a specific team composition that a lot of you might know, Hyper Bloom. And not only
A lot of
that,
you might know, one of the
you might have
reactions
heard
the
of it.
game.
It's
You might
kind
have
of a
heard this
niche.
one, yeah.
It's kind of a niche team composition. It only,
a
you
bit
know,
of a bit deep into the theory crafting iceberg.
for reference, there's actually a sim out there where if you took Nahida, Raiden, Yelan, and I think Xingqiu, and you put them in a random number generator to switch onto this skill, or switch onto them, cast their skill or the burst if it's available, and then fuck off to another random unit, it is roughly about 50,000 damage.
Which is
per second.
Pretty like upper average meta team.
Yeah,
If you just
I think
literally
like for
mash your
context, Xiao, without Farazan, does like 40k with like optimal combos. So, and I guess a lot of people do have criticism of like GC Sim isn't accurate or whatever, but like she just does so much damage, and her teams do so much damage. Like even if it's not like 50k, she just is insane.
And that's not even with like any investment on Nahida. Like it's herself. You don't really need to do anything on her, really. She can just be there for the Dendro application, and that's just how effective she'll be.
I do think it's worth mentioning that like even with how good she is, you still have like really good Dendro teams without her. Like she's generally an upgrade in almost all of the Dendro teams, with a few exceptions. But like the Dendro teams without her are still very strong. You don't need her to make Dendro work.
Especially not nowadays. Yeah, we have Yao. We still have the Dendro Traveler, but and we have Alhaitham now specifically. I think for myself, but yeah, I don't think people should underestimate like how crazy Hyperbloom and even Burgeon are. This is like quite meta defining because of how Hyperbloom kind of scales in single target and how many reactions you can get over like long periods of time. She really did kind of take the meta and destroy it, but we can talk a little bit more about this in detail in a bit. Anyone else have anything else on Nahida?
Just like
I
how
just think. I'll go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say, I just like that she's not only just restricted to Hyperbloom. She's like in any Dendro team. It's pretty good. That's like it's so flexible. Tossing her in to a Dendro team.
How do you feel about her C2?
Really, oh, it is amazing. It's probably arguably one of the strongest constellations in my opinion. Like a way that one of my staff has put it is like it's equivalent to giving like all the characters on your team like their signature weapon in terms of performance increase.
Yeah, Nahida's C2 is Alhaitham's best constellation. It's Sino's best constellation. It's
Eula's best constellation.
Yeah, imagine pulling for 4 5-star weapons, or you just get her C2. It works on any team you put her.
I would say that
Pretty
if
good.
you enjoy like actually playing the combat in this game, do not activate this constellation. It actually is just too strong.
It's technically like so strong that it's in one of Eula's like ceiling teams. If you have it, like she's like becomes a best in slot support. Like
All right,
Jesus, man.
we're going from Naida to Farzan. Another 4-star unit that is somewhat constellation locked and a little bit controversial. I
Yeah.
think people have really liked her because of how well she performs with Zhao and Wanderer, but she obviously very clearly has some issues. How do we feel about her? Obviously, on our scores, she's looking either at the bottom or close to the top. Pretty wide variation here. Why do we feel the way we do?
AB is a whale. That's the explanation.
No, yeah, I completely. I don't disagree that she's expensive. She's an expensive unit. Most people can't play her yet, and that's unfortunate. And that makes her really cringe that you can't just pick up a C0 and just have a good time. You just can't play her C0. It's like I would never play her C0. The charge attack thing that you have to do, you can get interrupted. It's not a very smooth gameplay experience. But as everyone knows, like when you get her C6, she becomes a lot easier to play, a lot smoother, and she does a wonderful job at making the Animo DPS niche do well. Namely Xiao and Wander. Those are the current two
Right.
Animo DPS.
She
Like
really
some-
made Xiao. Oh yeah, keep going.
I was gonna say, like out of all the specialist supports, C6 Farazan is probably one of the best ones. Like if you're comparing it to things like Goro or Shenhe, I'd
Or
consider her
Sarah.
like or Sara. Yeah, I would consider her like just the best version of
True.
a specialist support. And if any other archetype got something like that, that'd be wonderful for them.
True.
I
think
need a
that's
specialist
pretty much it.
support that makes my specialist support good.
I think the only problem is like C6 Farzan is kind of actually good, and I was thinking about like that. But then when you consider like everything else, it dropped her rating by a lot. So you kind of just
Yeah,
take the
she's
average.
expensive.
Yeah, you just gotta take the average, and she ended up at the bottom because of that. But otherwise, like C6 Farzan is actually ironically a good character, I think.
Yeah, CC Farazan's good. The thing is, she's only good if you're playing Xiao or Wanderer.
Yep.
And even like those teams, even with C6 Farazan, aren't that insane. Like they're still
Yeah.
pretty underwhelming.
I'm pretty sure Hyper Wanderer with C6 Farazan is still pretty lackluster.
Like that's fine. It's just nothing crazy. And so if that's how she performs at C6 and she's very, very worse before that C6, it's hard for me to justify putting her even like in the middle. Like she's closer to the bottom for me.
Ask us to
Okay,
reevaluate her when they
hypothetically-
add her constellations into the shop, and in maybe a year when we pick up more cards.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like hypothetically, Zajef, if you were only evaluating her at C6, where would she be?
Maybe between Sino and Cole.
Still middle of the pack for me as well. I don't think she's that stellar.
Mm,
But that's also painted by how much I
yeah.
don't really like Zhao and Wanderer.
It's probably like it would be a lot closer to the middle of the pack.
I think
If you play Zhao and Wanderer,
wouldn't-
it's good. That's all you really
Yeah.
have to say.
I think like for me
Yeah.
though, it's just like she makes Xiao's single target very high, and Xiao's historic problem has always been like single target, especially for people who aren't doing the like collision plunge
tag.
and one CJP whatever. And Farazan helps alleviate that issue by a lot. And
Yeah.
while Xiao single target is still not stellar with Farazan, like Zajef said, I think the fact that it alleviates his issues so much and allows him to be more flexibly played in Abyss, by allowing you to like more comfortably bring Xiao against single target, like sure, it's still not gonna be good, but you can do it without feeling like you're like banging your head against the wall. I think it definitely makes her a very good character. Mostly for like Xiao players, which I think is like out of the question. Everyone agrees with that.
I
but
mean, the
still.
thing is like even for specialized units, even when we look at the good ones, we don't really ever rank them that high. They're like middle of the pack because of how specialized they are. But we are 1 hour and 10 minutes in, so Zajef, if you have to leave or if you want us to speed up, I think we should all speed up here, and try to finish this out at least. All right.
Yeah, you only have a few characters left, so.
All right.
Just 2 more,
Wanderer.
right? Okay, I'll go
An
first.
on-field 5-star Hazo. How do you feel?
There's only a single reason why he's technically that high on the list, and it's Xiangling, and I'm not gonna elaborate on that.
All right.
Opa.
Okay.
I mean, KB has him in the same slot, and then the Wanderer is a little bit close in ranking. I think Zajef here is the one with him. Zajef and Ayzel. Why do you guys rank him lower than so low?
Because Shao exists.
Okay, all right, moving on.
Yeah.
That's
That's mostly the same answer for me.
he's fine. It's just his performance in AoE is significantly worse than Shao because it's so fucking hard to make him function in AoE, and his performance in single target isn't actually better. And so it's kind of just like, yeah, you can use him if you want. That's cool and all, but
He's
I don't
cool
think he's
looking.
very good.
I think he's
really
great for
like him with
Overworld.
the-
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
great
think
for
he's
Yeah,
good
that's
for
true.
Overworld.
He's very good for Overworld, and he does have like the Uemia upside of like he's ranged and he can target enemies that are in the air, which gives him like in this abyss, for example, right, with the fucking Wolf Lord garbage bullshit trash.
We love Weenut.
Oh,
I
yeah.
also
And
like him
Weenut
in.
comes in abyss as well. But yeah, like that's a nice upside to have, but I don't think it's enough.
I kind of like him in Ventiable floors, to be honest. Like it's like the most brain dead like kind of team you can do.
He works,
like
but other
Ganyu.
units work better.
I like
to be
Ganyu.
honest, if you have Ventiable floor, there's Ganyu.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I mean, if you have ventiable floors, you don't need a carry. Venti's fucking clearing your
It's
floor for
vented.
you.
That is true. That is true. But
Like, if
like
you don't
for
have
things like
Venti,
domains,
he's
it's very
buying
nice.
ventiable floor. Like, if it's a ventiable floor, Venti and carry if you have Venti, and if you don't have Venti, he's fucking garbage in ventiable floors because his AoE is not very good.
He feels like he's doing something though. That has to count for something, right?
Okay, like
Alright.
my thing is like he shortens the amount of time I need to play the game if I have to do domains, for
Okay,
example.
quick
'cause he
question
gets
though.
you there
Fair.
and clears.
If you
super
have
fast.
an account that doesn't have Wanderer or Zhao, which one would you recommend between the two?
Yeah,
No, he doesn't.
100%.
You know what the problem is, and we don't know yet, and that is like which banner is Farzan coming on? Because
It's
What if
probably
they-
the Wanderer.
True.
what if they only put Farzan on Wanderer banner? And at that point, they still put a Shao. It's like
But
question.
I don't think you pull for either of those units because you're.
I mean, yeah,
you pull
okay,
for
yeah,
meta,
true.
Okay,
right? Like,
okay.
You're pulling for them because you like them, so at that point, you just go for whichever one you like the most.
Okay, I guess that's not
Xiangling
true,
is
yeah.
holding Guoba and it's about to spit fire into your face. Which one do you pick? Wanderer or
Wanderer.
Zhao?
Wanderer. I think for the most part, people would enjoy the ease of playing the
I'm
game,
gonna pick
like
Wanderer,
flying around and
yeah.
shit. Yeah.
For the flying, like it's just easier, comfier. Oh, this is it's not necessarily comfier because getting hit when you're flying is fucking cringe, but it just
It is. It is.
Other than that, it's kind of easier and cooler to play. So same as KB, I guess.
Hazel,
I don't
which
care
one do
about
you pick?
Overworld enough to go for Wanderer.
Hazel, which one do you pick?
Same answer as Zajef. I very, very rarely play Overworld. Mostly because most of my time spent in the game is clearing Abyss and finding fun teams in Abyss. So I don't care about that as well. Also, like, I know I'm a Yoimiya main, but like I do not like the fact that she is so single targeted. I don't have Wanderer, but the fact that he is also like very single target locked, very similar playstyle, makes me think that I would also not enjoy playing him in the same way that I do not enjoy Yoimiya's flaws. So I would go for Xiao.
All right. I would say probably pull for Zhao. I don't like playing Wanderer with Xingqiu Yilan. I think it's a complete waste of resources, a complete waste of one of the strongest cores in the game. I think that Eing on Wanderer and then falling down and then pressing Q while you're on the ground is like the most cringe thing ever. It actually makes me want to crawl into a fire. But that's a personal thing. Overall, I would say pick whichever one you like the most. I personally like Wanderer because of how cool he looks, so maybe I would pick Wanderer. I don't know. I'd probably flip a coin. All right. Moving on. Alhaitham, our newest banner, and joined with Yao Yao
Yeah.
here. How are we feeling? It looks like all of us have him ranked near the top, at least 2, 3, or 4. So, why? Why is Alhaitham so good here?
I'll be honest, I'm biased because he's fun to play and he is cool and he has some amount of skill expression. I'll definitely admit it. I actually think most people might run into the issues where they overestimate him because his floor is so high, but they don't realize that a high floor doesn't translate to like a high ceiling, for example. Nevertheless, I know recently I joined some of his calc and number and TC from China and from KQM, and they're all really good. So he's still a really, really good character, and just good in every aspect, including like fun to play, easy to play, and high floor.
To be specific, when Tenten says he yoinked from KQM, he yoinked from me. But I yoinked it from other people, so it's fine.
Also joined from China.
Yeah, you yoinked from
Exactly.
WFP too. Oh no.
All right, KB.
I've never yoink. I've never yoinked in my life.
You literally
Uh,
tweeted like 2 days ago. Okay, never mind.
I think he's just an easy character to pilot. Like he's good.
Well, how do you
he plays
feel
Dendro a lot.
that? Would you agree with
Mhm.
the sentiment that he's green Kaching?
He's
I
green
mean,
child.
Visually, yeah, but in terms
Yeah,
of how
he works like child. Yeah.
Okay.
Like it,
Okay.
he doesn't feel like Kutsing to play, but I don't think that was ever like the argument. It just looks like her.
Yeah, he looked like
Okay.
Kaching.
Right.
I think for me, I think the most interesting things about Alhaitham are, one, he is very similar to Nahida, where he kind of scales with like every single stat: crit, attack, EM, energy recharge, elemental mastery. It's all great. And on top of that, he's someone that is very similar to Nahida in the sense that he can apply Dendro for a very long time, and he really, really likes the off-field damage provided by units like Xingqiu and Yilan. So he's able to do things like allow you to do double Hyperbloom teams in the Abyss with Nahida now, very easily and very comfortably, right? And he doesn't actually, or for me personally, when I was playing with him a lot, I actually preferred Kuki over Raiden for him, so you're not actually fighting for the same Electro Hyperbloom trigger. So that's personally why I like Alhaitham a lot. He's, how I would say, orthogonal. You get to pick different units. All right, Zajef, it's you now.
Oh. I mean, I literally did I recorded my Alhaitham post-release video like today.
Based.
So you should look forward to that on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/Zajef77. True.
Based.
No, but I'd say that he's a very good unit who suffers from kind of the same issue as Sino, I guess, in that he's good, but he doesn't really improve your account over other options that much. But the difference between him and Sino is that I'd say that he's just better, like, to begin with.
True.
And so it doesn't, like, he doesn't, like, he loses as much, but he starts from higher. And so I'd say that still makes him a pretty, like, a very strong option overall. Like, he's just very good.
All right. We'll wrap that up then. Alhaitham. Very cool. Yao Yao. We talked about her a little bit already. A Dendro healer, what we've been looking for. Definitely dragging Nilo up from the depths. Anything else you want to say
Nilo
about
wasn't in the depths. Nilo was pretty good without her, but she was pretty bad. Well, she was pretty underwhelming without having
a little bit of
like,
a slip
the
there,
other-
Zajef.
I mean, I can say bad as well. It's just a little bit more harsh than I would intend, but whatever. She wasn't performing all that well without having like Nahida and Kokomi before Yao came around. And I'd say that that's definitely like been improved quite a bit because of Yao, but I don't think that like Yao had that big of an effect on Nilo, other than like raise her floor for like relatively newer accounts that don't have Nahida.
Okay. So we're approaching up on our last 10 minutes here, and there have been requests to make our podcast a little more TC heavy, and we've just run through every single character so far in Sumeru to catch up. And for this return episode, we're actually going to wrap up pretty quickly here, and we're going to do kind of like a rapid fire here. I'm going to present 3 topics, and I want all of you to answer whatever you want. Maybe you can respond to someone's initial response and thoughts, or you can try to answer the question. But we only have 10 minutes, so let's try to make this quick. The questions that we have been receiving are meta and hyperbloom. Is Nahida healthy for the game? There have been lots of reports. I made a joke earlier that Nahida had decapitated Hu Tao. A little bit hyperbolic, of course, but what's the effect of hyperbloom Nahida on the metagame? Dendro and making bad units good. Should we look forward to something like this in the future? Is this something that we should consider for units that we consider bad now? Something like Candace, or Kandaka, maybe she'll become better in the future, or something like Toma and Kuki, where they became significantly better after Dendro. And how TC changes. We used to rate Kuki and Toma pretty low, but are there any frustrations with rating units and then being called out on it later? Or do you have other thoughts on this? And anyone can feel free to answer first.
That was a lot of things. I forgot.
That was a lot of thing. Yeah.
Meta,
Hyperbloom very good,
Dendro,
Pogger.
and rating units.
Yeah.
I think rating units is probably the most interesting one to discuss, so I'll just answer
I
that
think
one.
I like rating units too. 'Cause that's like my
Yeah,
entire
You can
okay.
answer however you want and whichever question you want.
Yeah, Tenten, you want to go first?
Okay. I think Artesian especially mentioned the question that is, should we consider if bad characters ever going to get good in the futures, because it did raise a couple characters from the ground to like better. For example, Kaching was considered one of the worst characters during her launch, and then the release of Dendro make her a lot better. But I think people always look at it wrong. People always look at it back and be like, wow, Kaching is so good, and we should have knew she was good because Dendro was going to come. No, wait, there's no way you're telling me when Kaching first came out, you're going to look 2 years in the head and say, oh, Dendro is actually going to make her good. I think this is the most common mistake that people fall into in life, not just in Genshin Impact, and that is like they always look back and say like in hindsight they should have done this. But if you ever say in hindsight, then you never regret anything. As long as you're making the most optimal decision at the time of the decision you're making with the most available information, I don't think you should ever regret anything, and therefore you should never be like, oh, in hindsight, Kaching was good, because that's not the case, right? In launch.
I think your generalization makes like is not accurate. Like it's not true that like you can't look at things with hindsight. I think that it is an accurate way of looking at it in this case, because it's not like I should have known, because there wasn't a way for you to know before, right? Like you could always hope that Dendro would make it thing better, but at the end of the day, it's not something you can ever rely on, because it's not like a logical thing. It's just like you're hoping that they do it, and if they don't, well, it sucks to be you, I guess. And having like setting your expectations that high isn't healthy. It's just gonna make you. It's setting yourself up to be disappointed, basically, right? But
Yep.
but I don't know if I would agree that like you can never say that like you can never look at things that you should have done differently in hindsight. Like that's definitely taking it a little bit too far.
Yeah,
I think
we're getting philosophical.
I think I think TC has developed in a way where yes, we've been wrong before, and yes, there have been times where we've been wrong and we should be called out on it, right? Bennett, for example, wasn't really picked up in popularity for a very long time. Same with Xiangling, right? We picked up these bits and pieces over time. We learned how ICT worked, all of this. But I think in this case at least, there was no way for us to really predict whether or not a character is designed with something else in the future that is intended to make this character operate better, right? There's no way for us to know what Nahida would have done with Nilo when she was released. There's no way for us to really understand what Kuki's elemental mastery was doing for her, or Toma's slow pyro application was doing for him, until we had new stuff. And I think part of TC is learning to accept that sometimes we're wrong and sometimes we have to change our minds, but keeping an open mindset and not dragging things around. And, no one should really be holding Zajef, Tenten, I, or anybody else really, or even other content creators, for something that they might have said a long time ago before we understood so much. It's different when they don't change their mind, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
My thing is
although-
the community
Okay,
tends to
Theory.
snapshot people's takes and then that's it. You're done. You're done, buddy, because they're not gonna watch your content anymore, so they're not gonna know what you think later. And they'll keep saying that you think these things, and it's the most frustrating thing as a TCer, especially if you ever have any visibility. You will run into it all the time where someone will just say something that you don't even believe, but they'll say like, you believe that this is how the game is.
Yeah, I
No.
actually had a thing recently where someone told me that they thought I was unreliable because I think that Ganyu is really insane and better than everyone else. And if you've listened to any of the podcasts for the past a year, that is not what I think about Ganyu at all, right? That was my position on her before I started becoming big enough to actually be able to get access to other people's accounts to test stuff. And so I didn't have Ganyu and I didn't have access to a Ganyu, so I just had to rely on other people's word for it. And everyone seemed to be in agreement at the time that she was really good. And then eventually I got big enough to be able to borrow people's accounts. And when that happened, I kind of just realized, oh yeah, I can see
I
it,
guess
but
two
also
things. Yeah. I think two things that I'm gonna cover real quick, and then we can probably wrap up because it's 1 hour 30 minutes. But one is that, kind of in the vein of what you were saying, Zajef, it is really difficult as a theory crafter to make claims about every single unit because people don't realize this sometimes, but we can't play every single unit. Sometimes we just don't have access to half the units because we're not all whales and we don't have refined R1 5-star, R5 5-star weapons. I don't have half of the Sumeru units. So even I didn't have Toma for the longest time, so I just had to go off what other people thought. And people ask you for judgments on these, and they're like, make a tier list or whatever, and you're like, I don't really know, but they push you for that judgment, and you kind of just have to provide something. Even if you add a disclaimer, I don't know if this is accurate because I don't have the unit, they're still going to say this is what you think, and just assign that to you because that's the soundbite, which is really difficult as a theory crafter. And the last thing that I just wanted to cover, kind of answering the original question, is I think my take is a little bit different than everyone else's. I think that we're a little bit different from Tenten's, at least. I think that you can make some prediction of what things are happening in the future. It's not going to be perfect. Of course, you can't know when Katyn released that 2 years in the future, Dendro would release and make her broken. You just don't have the data to make that judgment. But I think that we do have the predictive ability based on what we know on our priors to kind of predict what might come. It's impossible to predict Dendro for Katyn, but I think that predicting a Dendro healer for a Nilo team is something that was relatively likely to happen. So we could say if a Dendro healer releases, Nahida will be good. She's not, or sorry, not Nahida. Nilo will be good. She's maybe not top tier right now, but it is relatively likely that Yao Yao or some Dendro healer is going to release. And
Hello, mod check.
hello.
Mod check.
Alright, well, with Ayzel's thoughts there, I'll reply real quick. I personally think that
there are always things that
if-
are going to surprise us, but I think that we can
Oh,
make some kind
he's
of
gone.
prediction.
Perfect. Alright, so for my last thoughts here on what Ayzel's just said, I personally think that if we don't know the information, we shouldn't ever make the recommendation. You can judge it. You can operate on, certain assumptions that Nilo will become better with a healer. Yeah, that's fine. but it's not right of us to say you should pull Nilo because she will be crazy in the future with a healer, right? There's a fine line that we like to walk, and being culpable for someone wasting their primos is not a good feeling for any of us.
Yeah, and it goes back to the fact that like you can always just pull on a rerun. You can't unpull, right?
Yeah.
Which means that if you're wrong expecting a unit not to get, or expecting a unit to get like to just stay the same, then okay, the unit's now better and you can pull for the unit now. Cool. But if you actually expect them to get better and then they don't, then you've wasted your primogems on something you're not going to use, and that's just going to feel like shit. And so I consider it always better to just be safe about that, right? Like better safe than sorry. Just like it's the kind of stuff. And when Nilo came out, that's basically what I talked about a lot, which was you can go for her, and it's pretty likely that they're gonna release units that work well with her in the future. But you can also just wait for a rerun. There's no real downside to waiting for a rerun because she's not gonna cost more primogems on the rerun. It's gonna be the same price. So why rush into it?
Yeah,
Russian.
I don't disagree with that. I just think that like I don't really want to say like to pretend that we have zero knowledge of the future is incorrect. It's more of I think that like personally I can make a judgment of where I think a unit will be in the future, but as a content creator, I guess it's difficult, right? Because you can say like I think Nilo might be better in the future, but if that induces someone to roll, then like Art was saying, you feel bad. So I guess it is like a pretty final.
It wouldn't feel bad if, right, like a couple patches later, Yao Yao and Nahida come out. It feels bad when, it's like, okay, Xinyan might be good in the future, and then she's just not ever good.
Right? It's 2 years later.
So we temper our expectations. We try to be critical, right? Not negative, but critical, and that's kind of what differentiates us from hype posting and all that. And with that, you might have heard my alarm just now. We have hit the 1 hour and 30-minute mark, so we will be wrapping up. But I want to let KB, since you haven't spoken, do you have any final thoughts for us?
I think for example, the thing with Nilu saying that healers would make her better is fair, but we're not really predicting anything. We're just letting everyone know the conditions for certain things to happen, and I'm fine with letting people know what needs to be fulfilled for a unit to be good, and it's up to them. And I've never told people to like pull because the next units will probably make them good. It's more so like I can inform them like what the unit needs, and if they are someone with like a much different risk propensity to like dealing with that kind of a condition, then they can go for it. But
sure,
most people wouldn't. Yeah.
I think that will be a good topic for another time, whether or not this is a trend that we should really be expecting, that a unit become better with later patches, right? And that's something that we can talk about another time, and maybe you can catch us next week, actually, because we will be running another podcast next week with a special guest. I'll be doing our closing remarks here. Everyone else, you can have your say in a little bit, but thank you so much for listening and joining us for the GITCG Main's Theorycrafting Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Artesians, and it's been so fun talking with all of you today. Thank you so much to Ayzel, KB, Tenten, Zajef for joining us, and please let us know where we can find more of you. Ayzel, where can we see you next?
My Twitter account, that's basically the only place I post, but yeah.
That's twitter.com/Ayzel
Ayzel_0. Yeah.
Perfect. KB, where can we find you?
I have a Twitter, KB Genshin, but I don't really use it. So if you want to talk, I'm usually in KQM's Discord or Wangsheng Funeral Parlor. Just you can add me if you have a question or something.
Awesome.
I'm around. Yeah.
Tenten, how about you? Anything special coming up, or anything we should be looking out for, or just should we catch you on your socials?
I'm on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. I've been trying to do a lot of side project. I'm considering starting a second YouTube channel for IRL stuff. But also recently I learned how to do near automata speedrun, which is kind of cool. My goal is actually to make it to a charity event with a near automata, because it's really cool to be able to play games and have a lot of benefit for children. So yeah, so hopefully you guys be there.
All right, nice. And Zajef, where can we find you
Yeah,
next?
you can find me like I said earlier at youtube.com/c/77, where I'll be posting my Hytham post release somewhat soon. I've got a bunch of videos, including, I mean, I'll probably also be posting some slightly more suspicious. Maybe you shouldn't talk about it here, but dream content. Let's say. Yeah, with the certain Shinyan-like character, maybe perhaps. Pre-release is probably going to be coming out soon as well at some point. Gonna do some and gonna be answering some questions on the rerun characters Hu Tao and Yilan that are coming later this patch. I'm also I started a new account recently, which is that's what I've been doing during this. I've just been unlocking waypoints on it to try to make the stream part of it more interesting. But it's an account where basically the chat decides everything. So chat decides what I do, who I pull for, how I spend my resin, who I level. So if you want to participate with that, you can check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/Zajef77. And if you just want to see the highlights of that account, they should be posted to YouTube eventually.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll be posting all of your socials below in the description. Please link me that. And for our audience, if you have any questions for us, we do run a Q&A segment right after the end of each podcast, so you'll have to catch us live if you want to answer any of that. We don't record that and post that anywhere. If you want to have an appearance on the podcast, or have a favorite content creator that you'd like to see, feel free to message them or message us, letting them know. And then if you have any other suggestions or feedback, please feel free to DM me on Twitter or Discord. And you can find me in the Kaching Mains Discord or on twitter.com/Artesians with 2 S's. And that's it
one
for
last thing.
2 S's.
Yeah.
Where are the 2 S's, at the end or in the middle?
at the end. And
that's probably something you should say.
that will be all for today, everyone. Thank you so much.
Wait.
Goodbye.
One last thing.
Oh?
Next week's podcast, Friday. I think it should be 6:30 to 8 p.m. Pacific, which is 9:30 to 11 p.m. Eastern. So look forward to that as well.
All right. We'll see you then, guys. Thank you so much.